Alright guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the Glock versus 1911. So to start off with, the Glock, let's do a safety check real quick. The Glock is going to be a polymer frame striker fired pistol. Okay. And the 1911 is going to be a steel frame. Sometimes aluminum frame or alloy frame, but most of the time it's going to be a steel slide, steel frame. So this particular 1911 is chambered in 45 ACP, so you get a big 230 grain slug gun, slower than a 9mm, but you know, it's big and heavy. And then on the 1917, you get 9mm. Here's a Glock 22, which is in 40 Smith & Wesson. But the Glock, like I said, is a striker fired, so it has an internal firing pin, striker, as you can see right there. Okay. And then the 1911 is going to be hammer fired. Okay. The 1911 has an internal extractor, while the Glock has an external extractor. Now, because the 1911 has an internal extractor, it has to be tuned a certain way. It has to be tuned well in order for the gun to function well, whereas the external extractor is going to be less finicky. And overall, the 1911 is going to be a little bit more finicky with different types of ammo, while the Glock is going to be a little bit more reliable. It tends to feed any type of ammo you put through it, really. Now, they do jam. Glocks do jam. Every gun can jam, right? If you put enough rounds through it, or if it's, you know, not super well maintained or anything like that, it can jam. So even Glocks. Now, the 1911, like I said, steel frame. So you're going to get a very strong frame, right? There's pictures online of Glocks being chewed up by their owner's like dog and whatever, and the grip's all like messed up and everything like that. You're not going to have that with a 1911. Okay. But the thing that the polymer is good at is corrosion resistance, so you're not going to have any rusting on the frame itself, while the 1911 can rust. It has a lot of internal parts and crevices in the frame where it can build up moisture and rust. So it's going to need a little bit more maintenance on the 1911. Whereas the Glock, it doesn't have anything in here. It doesn't have a main spring housing or anything like that. All the mechanics are internal, right around this area. So with the Glock, you're going to have what a lot of people would consider a pretty rough trigger. It's not by any means good. Now on the Gen 5s, it is a little bit better than the previous generations, but it's still a spongy Glock trigger. But it is consistent. Every time you pull the trigger, it's going to be the same thing. So although it's not that great, it is consistent. On the 1911, you're going to have a single action only firing, which means the hammer has to be cocked first. Then you pull the trigger. Nice, light, and crisp. Now, like I mentioned before, it is single action. So if the hammer is forward, you pull the trigger, nothing will happen. It won't fire. It does have to be cocked back by either your thumb, if the round's already chambered, or the slide. Okay. But the trigger on the 1911 is going to be a lot better. Now, a lot of people do say the Glock is blocky, and that is true. Even on the 19, although it does feel comfortable in my hand, it feels like I'm holding a 2x4. While the 1911 is going to be a little bit better gripping it. It feels very, very comfortable. Now, the 1911 is a very, very old design. Designed in the early 1900s and adopted by the U.S. Army in 1911. Okay, but it still works. It's one of the most popular guns to this day. Okay, it is a proven design. The thing with them is 45 ACP on a single stack, you're only going to get 8, 8 plus 1, 7 plus 1. So you're limited in ammo capacity. And for a 5-inch gun, that's really, really big compared to, let's take this Glock 19 right here. Okay, it is a lot longer and roughly about the same height with if you measure the RMR on the Glock here, but if you don't, yeah, it is quite a bit bigger. So you get 9 rounds with a 1911, but on a compact frame Glock 19 like this, you get 15 plus 1, so 16 rounds total. And the Glock is going to be more lightweight as well. And the Glocks that are made now, right, anything Gen 3 and later, you're going to have an accessory rail on it. Not all 1911s will have an accessory rail. So if you're a guy who wants to use, or gal, that wants to use a pistol for home protection, for carrying, having a light on there is very, very nice. Now, with the Glock, this is a Gen 5 MOS, so you can put a red dot on it. This is just a, railed 1911, nothing too fancy on it. It does have Novak style sights, but it does not have a cutout for an RMR. Now this is the 17, so a little bit bigger brother than the 19. It is empty. Similar setup to the Glock 19. Okay, with the RMR, a Surefire X300 light on it. Okay, this has a streamlight. This has a threaded barrel on it. So it's a 5-inch barrel, just like the 1911. But even with the 5-inch barrel on it, as you can see, it is still shorter than the 1911. And not counting the red dot, it is about the same height as well. But again, with the Glocks, you're going to get more capacity. On this one, it's 17 plus 1. So 18 rounds total, whereas you have 9 rounds with the 45. So twice the amount of ammunition you can carry on a Glock, and it's going to be lighter. Okay, but that isn't to say that the 1911 is a bad pistol. It is definitely a good pistol, solid for home defense. If you do want to carry it, it'll work fine. But I do believe you get more practicality out of the Glock. Now, if you were to go with the Glock 22, such as this one, this is a Gen 3. It is clear. Okay, you're gonna have 15 plus 1 of 40 Smith & Wesson. Now, there's a lot of debate out there. 9 versus 45, 9 versus 40, yada yada. In all practicality, a 9mm is going to be perfectly fine for you. It'll do the job more than you really need it to. So I personally would rather have the higher capacity, lighter weight, smaller frame, and better practicality of the Glock than the 1911. I do love the 1911, however. I think it's more fun to shoot the 1911 than a Glock at the range. So this is primarily my range gun, the 1911. I appreciate the 1911 because more so its looks rather than its functionality. But that's just me. A lot of guys really, die-hard 1911 guys will use it for home protection, carry, and that's awesome too. But okay, but at the end of the day, I think the Glock is a more practical option. Yeah, but leave a comment down below what you think. All right, anyways, that's it for today's video. Please leave a like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.